Order the Wytheville Town Council meeting, Monday, July 22nd, 2024 at 5 p.m. being held in the municipal building at 150 East Monroe Street in Wytheville. We do have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilman Gary Gilman.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next on the agenda is an approval of the agenda. We'll need to amend the agenda. I have somebody willing to do that. We will need to amend the agenda to add 2.2-3711A7, consultation with legal counsel pertaining to litigation.
Now, do we need to amend it, or is this just a suggestion that we amend it?
All right, so we need to amend it.
This was a staff request.
So I just read out what the amendment was. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, this will be a roll call vote. I'll start with Mr. Gilman.
Gilman, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Atkins, aye.
Johnson, aye. That carries. Thank you. Just for information purposes, 6 p.m. We could stop for a recess if necessary. Next on the agenda is a consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the work session on the regular meeting of July 8, 2024. Do I have a motion to accept as given or somehow amended?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye as well. Any opposed? Aye. So that passes. Next on the agenda is a public hearing to consider general obligation bond in the amount of $800,000 for capital improvements to the town's wastewater facilities. And Mr. Freeman will bring us up to speed on that.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. You do have in your packet a report, but for the benefit of those who have joined us and those who may watch this online, I'll go ahead and read the report into the record. Over the last 12 to 18 months, the town has been working on the design and financing of a sewer infiltration and inflow project that's also referred to I&I. On March 6, 2024, the Town Council held a special council meeting and a public hearing to consider approving a resolution authorizing the execution of a general obligation bond through Virginia Resources Authority in the amount of $491,784, which was 25% of the nearly $2 million project. Council voted unanimously to approve the resolution. This bond was for 30 years at 0% interest and represented the principal repayment portion of the project. The remainder of the project costs, or about $1,500,000, was to be in the form of a principal forgiveness loan. This was essentially a 75-25 grant from the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. The loan amount was based on the design work and the estimate provided by the consulting engineers. On April 25th, 2024, the bids were opened and the project came in at $3,198,394, or about $1,200,000 higher than the original estimate. In response, VRA issued a new commitment letter increasing the principal forgiveness portion to $2,398,394 and the principal repayment portion to $800,000. And this effectively remains at the same loan and grant ratio as before. So 75-25 ratio, and a new commitment letter was issued. On June 24th, 2024, the council scheduled a public hearing for July 22nd, 2024, which is tonight. And it is the recommendation of staff that following the public hearing, the council approve the new terms and adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance of the bond and proceeding with the project. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, or we can take those during the public hearing, however you would like to proceed.
Anybody have any questions before we open up the public hearing? All right, hearing
Just
none.
real quick, Mayor Taylor, for the record, the $300,000 difference there, about $310,000 is over 30 years. It's at zero interest, so it's about a $10,000 a year difference on the project. But it is, again, an over a $3 million project with only $800,000 in potential repayment at no interest.
Thank you for adding that. All right, I will now open up the public hearing to receive public comments regarding the General Obligation Board bond. Don't see anybody listed here to speak during this public hearing. So we will go ahead and close the public hearing. At this time, I'll ask council for consideration to adopt a resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation bond in the amount of $800,000 for capital improvements to the town's wastewater facilities. I will need a motion.
So moved, Mayor Taylor.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion? Right here, none. This will be a roll call vote. We'll start with Councilwoman Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Atkins, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Gilman, aye.
All right, and that passes. Next, we'll consider using emergency procurement procedures for the replacement of a pump for the Booker Pump Station. We'll have a staff report by Engineer Billy Anderson. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. Of course, we've had this discussion over the last little bit about Booker Pump Station. We are in the final kind of processes of the pump design. We had to go back to our consultant to have a discussion about the original design in exchange with a potential large discharge facility, possibly going to come into the industrial park. We had to kind of relook and have the proposed pumps assessed to make sure that they would kind of handle that. So the appropriations that we had last year to make a down payment, we have not used that yet because we've had to have the pumps looked at again due to a potential new facility that might be located into the industrial park. So Pete and Bortz, who's our consultants, looking at that right now to make sure that what we had originally spec'd would potentially cover any additional discharge that comes from a facility that size in that area. With the constraint time that we have, being that the rehab of this pump station is a portion of a DEQ consent order that's attached to our wastewater treatment plant, we do have a constrained time limit to secure a contractor to install and to secure the infrastructure equipment ourselves. So that's what we're looking to do, is utilize the emergency procurement portion of state code in order to go ahead and secure quotes and contracts, or at least secure quotes and agreements with an installer instead of having to go through the full procurement policy. I just don't think we have the time to be able to meet all those standards. So that's we're looking to expedite the process to make sure that we can get this project underway and completed prior to the timeline that will be listed in the pending consent order.
Any questions? Well, I do have one. If you would just,
Yes.
I don't think I heard you right. So you were talking about the pump station, but you said something about, did you say Progress Park? Or
The industrial park.
Industrial Park?
Asia Park out there within
Okay.
town limits.
All right, so that's close to the Booker's.
That is
homestead?
that industrial park at Asia Park discharges directly into this watershed. So everything that's created and discharged or used within that industrial park comes down to this pump station and is cycled through it.
All right,
So
thank you.
installation or the addition of a large facility out there, or a facility that would potentially have a large amount of discharge would greatly affect the design that we need to accommodate to that amount of additional flow.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, so at this time, I need consideration by town council to approve using emergency procurement procedures for the replacement of the pump at the Booker Pump Station. This will be a roll call vote. I'll start with Mr. Gilman.
Need a motion?
Excuse me, I need a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the town staff using the emergency procurement process to repair of a pump at the Booker Pump Station.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call vote. Start with Mr. Gilman.
Gilman, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Atkins, aye.
Johnson, aye.
All right, thank you. That motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Next is a resolution supporting Southeast Rural Community Assistant Project Incorporated, CERCAP Facilities Development Program grant application in the amount of $50,000 to be used for the repair of a clarifier number 4 at the town of Wytheville wastewater treatment plant. And I think Ms. Holton will give us a little bit of update on that, please.
Good evening. So enclosed in your packet is a staff report about the CERCAP grant. Essentially, this is an annual grant. It opens up on July 1. It is a first come, first served grant basis. And so once we became aware of this, I immediately applied for the grant. A town council resolution is not required for the grant application. However, I think it will support the grant application and hopefully assist us with ranking higher and potentially get the award of the grant. So essentially, the nuts and bolts of this is we do need to rebalance clarifier number 4 at the wastewater treatment plant. We do have a tentative estimate of around $65,000 in your packet. I did not have the updated estimate at the time that I typed this. So $65,000 is the estimate that I received this morning to do the work. If we are awarded the grant, it would pay for $50,000 of the $65,000 amount to get this project done. And much like what Mr. Anderson just referenced, installing and balancing the clarifier arm and equipment is another part of the consent order. So staff is working diligently to meet the requirements of the consent order. And tonight, what I'm asking of the council is to approve a resolution, which I believe is also in your packet, which supports the grant requests that I have submitted. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. And I thank you in advance for your consideration. Thank you.
You said 65,000.
Yes, ma'am.
So does that need to change in the resolution from 50,000 to 65,000, or does that remain the same?
So in the resolution, it's referencing the grant award. So the resolution would not need to be amended.
So it just needs to remain as 50,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Grant resolution. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Second, did you have one?
Oh, I was just thanking her. Thank you, Ms. Holton. Sorry. Thanks.
All right, so at this point, consideration by town council to adopt a resolution supporting the CERCAP grant application in the amount of $50,000 to be used for the repair of the clarifier number 4 at the town's wastewater treatment plant. I need a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Ms. Holton, you did say the resolution would help support that, right? So it's good for us to go ahead and do the resolution.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other concerns or questions? All right, hearing none, this will be a roll call vote. We'll start with Councilwoman Johnson.
Johnson, aye.
Atkins, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Gilman, aye.
And that passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is to consider the request for the Department of Museums for the take a break from the interstate Road Market scheduled for July 26 to 28, 2024. Now, if anybody has any questions, Ms. Holton will be glad to answer them. Anybody have any questions about that?
I do real quick, just on the, is it because it's like several days and instead of just 2 days?
That is correct.
Okay.
In the town code, section 7-66, there is a provision that states that it is unlawful to have a yard sale for a period longer than 2 consecutive days. And the road market is from Friday through Sunday, which is 3 days. And so from what I understand, the town council has traditionally, over the last 10 years, amended the town code specifically for this weekends to allow folks to set up for 3 days. So essentially my recommendation is that we do that again this year. And my second recommendation is that I come back to you with a potential permanent fix so that we don't have to do this each and every year.
That's what I was going to ask. If just for this particular one, is there something we could just do permanent instead of asking continuously every year? Is that something we can go ahead and decide on this evening?
I would prefer to bring the language to you at a future meeting. So yeah, for tonight, if you could just temporarily amend to allow the 3-day road market weekend for this upcoming weekend. And then what we will do is, if you agree at a future meeting, potentially look at a permanent town code change.
That was my question.
If you all agree.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I will need a consideration by town council to approve the request, but I guess with the amendment for the 3-day event.
So moved.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, is there any discussion? All right, here none. This would be not a roll call vote, so all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye as well. Any opposed? Here none, that motion passes. Next on the agenda is presentation by Planning Director Mr. Dr. Woods to provide an update to the proposed Unified Development Ordinance, or the UDO.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. It will be 2 years next month since Mayor and Council authorized the Planning Commission and staff to develop a Unified Development Ordinance. And we are nearing completion of that process. And just to give you an update, since this will be coming your way fairly soon, just wanted to give you an update on its status. We are currently in the process of obtaining public comment. As of May 15th, the first draft of the document was posted at the Planning Department's website. And we have been going through a process with focus groups discussing the proposed ordinance. And we'll be looking for comments from the general public after the second draft of the ordinance is prepared sometime by the middle of next month. Currently, our town attorney is reviewing the document. He's made a lot of progress on that. And many of those changes from his review, as well as from input from our community and the focus group, we're going through the draft document to make some of those changes and modifications and I think it's already begun to improve the quality of the document. The two focus groups that we held, one focused on housing and the other focused on economic development. And so we invited people from various community boards and organizations, as well as real estate and engineering professionals from the community to comment on each of those topics. And we had a very lively discussion with some very good input from the community. And we're in the process of addressing those comments in the document. Many of those comments are insightful and, coming from professional backgrounds, and, we're trying to take as a very in-depth look at each of those comments and improving the document. The next step after those, we look at this as a sort of a cycle of review after that first commentary through the focus groups. After the second draft is completed, we'll be going before the public with a survey, and people can see the current draft now on their website, but when the second draft, we'll be promoting that through social media and other methods to make sure that our community is aware of the new document and that they have a chance to review it and take a survey and make other comments that they may like to see and ways to modify the document and to improve our community. Just to summarize the framework of the UDO, it's divided into 9 articles. Our current ordinance has 30 some odd separate articles. This focuses those into more focused articles for each type of each portion of the document. Article 1 would address the enabling legislation and the underpinnings legally for the document. Article 2 addresses policies for administration and enforcement of the ordinance. Article 3 discusses the processes that people will need to go through to make applications for permitting for both subdivision and zoning applications. Article 4 is the subdivision standards. Article 5 enumerates the various zoning districts, both the standard zoning districts and the overlay zoning districts. We'll be putting them into a little bit more concise. So the actual zoning guidelines for each zoning district will be simplified into a table, a couple of tables really, that will give residents and business owners pretty quick access to the information they need to know what they can do in their particular properties. Article 6 is a land use table, which will greatly improve what now is a very complicated process of determining what can be done on a particular piece of land in a particular zoning district, because those land uses are scattered throughout a number of articles in the document. And this will bring it all into one table where you can very quickly determine where a particular use is allowed and where it is not. Article 7 will be general site development standards. So these are things that, regardless of what type of project you're building, all these standards will apply. So if you're building a commercial site, the parking lot standards and access standards will all be found in one location. Article 8 is standards for conditional uses. We are adding a new technique to manage uses that are a bit unusual and maybe need a little more consideration for how it would affect neighbors. And so those uses will have a preset list of conditions that a developer will need to meet in order to do that on their site. They might be a particular size of parcel or screening or some other matter that's or approach that's relevant to that particular use. And what this does is avoids our current method, which forces someone to go through the process of obtaining a special use exception permit for each of those items. And these are things which traditionally the Planning Commission has recommended approval, and this body has approved those with very similar conditions time after time. And so this would make those types of approval something that we could review administratively and avoid some of those extra hearings. And so Article 8 provides those particular standards. And then Article 9 will bring all of our definitions into one place, where right now our current ordinance, we have an article with definitions, but we also have others that are scattered throughout the document, making it very difficult for somebody who's building a project in our community to know exactly what they're allowed to do, because they may have missed one. Excuse me.
That's good timing.
Yes. I forget, I turned off the phone, but not the watch.
They were on about definitions. It's all right.
Yes. All right. So Article 1, these are the general topics that it covers: the authority and the framework for operating the UDO and interpreting it. Article 2 defines the roles of individuals such as the zoning administrator, the planning commission, and this body. It sets forth some of the penalties and enforcement standards and the standards for making the decisions about each of these approvals. Article 3, again, is the review of the permitting process. Article 4 is our subdivision standards. And then Article 5 is our zoning districts. And when you look at this, you may be a little shocked at how many zoning districts there are. There's a couple reasons for that. We've added a few new zoning districts, and there's a few other zoning districts that it is our goal that over time those will become obsolete because of the new zoning districts that we add. And so it looks a little longer than it really is. Plus, we have combined our overlay districts, which are currently embedded in a different section of our zoning ordinance, and grouped them all together, since each of them determine the way land can be used within a particular zone. Some of the purposes of these new zoning districts is really to give us more potential to protect the character of our community. Right now, all of our business districts have essentially the same setbacks and same requirements. But if we're to protect the character, for example, of our downtown, we need a little bit more nuanced regulations for setbacks to guide that character of those neighborhoods. This is a couple of pages of the land use table. And across the top of each page, you'll see all of the zoning districts listed. Down the left side, you see the various land uses. And so it's very easy to read across. If you have a solid black square, that's what's known as a by right use. If you have an open square, those are conditional uses. And so those are the ones that are subject to those conditions in Article 8. If there's an asterisk, that means it's something that requires a special exception permit. Something that's might be controversial enough that the Planning Commission and this body would need to hold a series of hearings and approve. If the square is blank, then that use is not allowed in that district at all. Article 7, things like location of dumpsters, fences, landscaping, lighting, parking standards, retaining walls, signs. These are all items that would apply fairly generally across development within the community. And then the list of conditional uses gets quite long, but we think, even though we've got a lot of text here, we think it'll make it much easier for someone who's building a project in town to quickly reference what do they need to do in order to be in compliance with our zoning ordinance. So this is a case where more text makes it easier for a developer or a property owner to know what's allowed. And then wrapped up with definitions that we think we'll be able to be much more consistent than in our current ordinance. Any questions that I can answer? We're hoping to have this before you all sometime in early fall.
Now, would this just be online, or if someone could get a hard copy if they wanted to themselves, the whole packet?
If someone needs a hard copy, we can provide it.
Okay.
But the entire document in its first draft form is available at the Planning Department webpage today.
Okay.
So the constituents being notified as far as their public comments, will it only be on social media, or will it go out in their water bill?
It will probably go out in the water bill. We will probably do some legal ads in the newspaper, and we hope we have scheduled Talk of the Town broadcast, and hope to be able to get a press release out and just reach out as many ways as possible, in addition to some pushed advertising on social media. And so we will be not just posting on our website or on our Facebook page as a town, but also purchasing notifications that will go out, very similar to what was done with the STARS study on North 4th Street. VDOT, in that case, paid for advertising on Facebook that targets people who are in Wytheville. If you happen to be from Blacksburg, but you're in Wytheville on a cell phone and look at Facebook, you might, by being geographically here, you would be notified of that survey. And so I think we're going to have a pretty good way to make people aware of what's going on.
Would it be possible to place it on the water bill?
Oh, absolutely.
That sounds like a great idea.
To see it go on the water bill. I'm not completely comfortable with this myself. I was at the last planning commission meeting, and I need to become a little bit more familiar with some things. So I would like for the residents to be familiar with it as well, so that they fully understand and know what is going on.
Yep. You're going to have a lot of reading in your future.
I hope so.
And if I may just add something to that, Mayor Taylor, if that's okay. What we would also like to do with Town Council, if you are agreeable, is potentially set up some one-on-one sessions with myself and Mr. Woods, because the document is 350 pages long. So I think it would be helpful for you as the elected body to learn more one-on-one about what's in there, and you can also share your concerns with us. So if you're agreeable to that, I will ask Mr. Woods to try to start setting those up sometime between August the 10th and maybe the middle of September.
Could we possibly do it with our committee partner?
Yes, absolutely. So we could do that as well.
Mr. Gilman, that would be you and I.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Woods.
Appreciate it.
All right, next on our agenda is a presentation by Director of Parks and Recreation, George Sheritz, on a proposed schedule of holidays to close the Wytheville Community Center.
I'm Mayor Taylor, Council. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. My first presentation for this evening is regarding closing on some additional already approved town holidays at the Wytheville Community Center. The town currently closes on, I believe, 13 town holidays. We are currently closed on 7 of those. What I'm asking for is to close on the remaining 6 days. As holiday and comp bank hours are becoming a little bit more difficult to manage, especially when we're considering the ebbs and flows of available part-time staff and the amount of time that we're asking our part-time or full-time staff to put in. It makes it very difficult for you to take off and use those holiday bank hours when you're constantly working additional hours. Our facility runs Monday through Sunday. So when we have different programs going on, not only in the facility, but throughout town, and a lot of those, it makes it very difficult for staff to take those town holidays. And so what we're requesting, we are currently, if you look in your packet, if you see the highlighted days, those are days that our facility is already closed. The days that are not highlighted are the days that we're requesting to close now. And that would be Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, Juneteenth, Columbus Day, Election Day, and Veterans Day. So I guess what I'm here today is to ask for your all's approval to begin doing so and begin advertising that we would be closed on those days.
Anybody have any questions for
How
Josh?
is it going to benefit our constituents by being closed? I know it benefits the employees, but the recreation center, obviously, they have worked with this over the years, the number of years that they've been open, and it is now, you're saying it is now a problem when it has worked over a number of years.
It has worked. It has worked, but with town council or town management generally approving any carryover from years past with Comp Bank and Holiday Bank, that has worked, but we're continually carrying those over. So I have some staff that it's very difficult for them to actually take time off because most of the way these holidays fall. So the reason it has worked is because we have not been there's been no time limit put on our ability to take that time off. So I hope does that answer your question?
How are they carrying it? Are they carrying it over for a year? Are they carrying it over for 2 years?
So what Josh is referring to is in each of these situations where the facility is open, but the town has provided a holiday, each of his employees would get 8 hours added to their leave bank. And so when these 6 holidays here are going to add 48 hours of leave to these people, and with the facility open 7 days a week, except for the listed days, it becomes very difficult for them to actually get that time off. I think in 2020, late 19 or 20, the council approved repaid holidays to just go into the leave bank, meaning before there was a repaid holiday policy where the repaid holiday had to be used within 1 year, but we were in the height of COVID and understaffed in a lot of places, so really no one was taking time off. So the leave balances are starting to kind of get up there. That's one thing. Another thing, I know Josh talked to me about this, is when we've had a few situations lately where the council has granted additional holidays that the facility stays open on those days, but then those employees get an additional 8 hours each time. Do you see what I'm saying? Anytime
I fully understand. I used to work shift work, so I know how.
Okay, I'm just trying to help you
Yes,
understand.
I fully understand. So,
And it's a wonderful gift whenever you all give that. It just makes it very difficult for staff. We're continually banking, our staff is continually banking those because they don't have the opportunity to take those off.
So one of the things that Josh suggested to me was the possibility of publishing a calendar annually to the patrons of the facility to say, these are the days that the facility be closed, and then they're not in a rush to try to get the facility closed in just a few days' time.
I would need to see a report, an actual printed report of the number of people that come in on those days.
Would you like that to include day passes or overall general use?
Overall,
Okay.
please. Actual printed report, not something typed and sent, but an actual printout with the numbers on it,
Okay.
so that I can evaluate. I have to look at, I am for the employees, but I also have to do an evaluation for the people that are members, people that are going there to work out, to try to stay healthy. Those are the things that I have to look at. And I need to know also, are we going to be willing to prorate the past plans for people that are paying and those days are not available?
Well, what we're talking about is a difference. We're talking about 13 days out of the 350.
Right, but
Yeah.
people are paying for those days.
Understood.
They're paying for those days. So we need to know if we are going to prorate their past plans because they are paying a fee for service. And if we're not going to provide the service, then we need to do a proration on their plans for the days that it's going to be closed. But I do want to see a actual report that's been printed out that shows the number of people that are coming and using the facilities on those days before I make a decision.
Mr. Freeman, do you know why that this was set before for the rec center many years ago? Is there like a type
When you
of-
say set before,
Well, if they're not getting it, now, why was it set in place? Does anybody, maybe Ms. Corbin or Mayor Taylor,
are
know?
you saying the holidays?
Yes, sir. Why the rec center? And I think Mr. Sheriff's also said in the public works crew, this includes why did they not follow suit like many years ago? Is there any type of back history?
You mean from when the facility was opened, why did they not just say the facility will be closed on these days? I really don't
I just
know.
didn't know if there was and if for some reason, if council chooses not to, I would like to maybe see if council consider paying these people overtime instead of rolling it over, because they actually are, working and putting in a day, just not 8 hours though. I'd like them to see them compensated correctly, if that's possible. Hello, anybody out there?
I'm just trying to digest it.
Well, no, I mean, that's just something, if, as he's working on the report, I just didn't know if there was some figures maybe that could be looked at as paying them. I don't
So
agree
to be
not
clear,
to not paying them.
If you work 8 hours and you're given 8 hours of holiday, you've been compensated 16 hours for working 8. So they're already getting double compensation. So I'm not sure what we would do in addition to double.
I'm saying actually pay them, for that time instead of.
I got you.
Instead of bank.
Okay, so when you said the overtime, it threw me off
I'm
because
sorry,
overtime would be
instead of
1.5 and we're actually
right.
paying 2.
Yes, well, instead of.
Well, we're actually paying 2 because they work 8, they get paid for 8, and then they get paid for 8 additional hours. So that's 2 times. It's not time and a half. It's 2 times.
Well, if they work it, if it's a holiday, they work it, pay them for the holiday.
Yeah, I'm just trying to clarify that the time and a half is.
Well, I guess what I'm just trying to say is I know you were talking about, it continues to roll uphill instead of having them bank it, and I'm talking with my hand, sorry, but having them bank it.
Yeah, I think I understand. You're just saying go ahead and pay instead of having a repaid holiday, just pay the 8 additional hours of pay.
If council decides not to give it, I would like council to consider that, and that way it won't bank, and then that way they'll be definitely paid for what they work. Not saying they haven't been, but.
To me, it just sounds like we have some questions and maybe we need just to bring this back to council.
And I had prepared for the amount of day passes sold because it just depends on our programming that day on how many regular we have over the last couple of years. So it's so as far as pass plan users, but I came prepared with how many day passes were sold. But I don't have the full report as far as how many people actually swiped in during the day. So.
And one more thing to council consider when we bring it back. If for some reason council does that, I would like to take that suggestion to go ahead and prorate or somehow pay those like 13 days. How many days did you say, Mr. Sheriff?
There's 13 total town hall
Okay.
days. What I was asking for was the additional 6.
Okay.
Proration
Of
for
6
all of
days.
the past plan holders.
I mean, there's some just dialogue we should have, but I mean, just to consider.
Everybody's good with that, and when you get ready and get it all together,
I'll bring it back to you.
We'll get you back on the agenda. Thank you for
Mr.
that.
Sheriff.
I'm just going to stay up here.
No, that's good. Sorry.
And next would be a presentation by Director of Parks and Recreation, Josh Schartz, and provide information regarding a splash pad.
Yeah, so I know there's been a lot of discussion on from some citizens and among council on the development of a splash pad within the town. And so what I've done is I've just kind of put together a little bit of information so you all are aware of what we're talking about, some of the history of how we've been involved thus far, and then just some things to consider going forward. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. And I'm sure most of you are aware, you've seen a splash pad, you've been by one or been to one. So they're typically, using a combination of sprayers. It can be as simple as you've got a couple in-ground sprayers, or you've got some misting machines, or you've got the large buckets that are dumping a couple 100 gallons on you. They can be varying in sizes from the smallest to the largest. I mean, like what you see at Carowinds compared to what you'd see a couple fountains in the middle of a park. I mean, that's what you can go with. A variety of shapes and sizes. They can fit anywhere. There's 2 different ways of operating them. There's basically a freshwater system where you're basically you have a freshwater line that runs right to it, and you're just wasting that fresh water. Or you can do a recirculation system, which is very similar to a pool. It's got the pump, filtration, chlorination, all of that good stuff that goes with it. And basically you have a big surge tank that's buried in the ground that would help supply constant water to those pumps. Typically operates seasonally, late April, early May, through, you may squeeze out 1 year through October, but it just depends on what the weather's like. And then they also, they operate with little to no supervision as long as you have appropriate signage with those. So that's basically what a splash pad is. So just how this got started within the Parks and Rec Department, on May 30th, I was approached by the nonprofit group Salt and Light with the desire to put a splash pad within the town of Wytheville. I agree that any new recreational opportunity is something worthwhile and is absolutely worth looking into, and we scheduled a follow-up meeting from that point. On the 31st, I began reaching out to a couple of pool companies that I have a good relationship with from previous positions, and began obtaining input from them as well as other recreation professionals by using our aquatics forum through the Virginia Rec and Park Society, as well as the forum online with the National Parks and Recreation Association. So just getting input. What do you look for? Why did you pick this design? Why did you go with this size? Things like that. On the 27th, we met again with Salt and Light to begin discussing. Really, it was more of a meeting to kind of understand and start setting some expectations with the project. Just wanting to kind of get a better understanding of the size that this group was looking at and how it could best complement our current park system. At that time, they began having other conversations with different groups within the town and within the county as well. But it was again a good meeting just to kind of manage and set those expectations. On the 27th as well, I met with our 90 Kid Ventures participants, which are ages between 5 and 12, and asked them if they could to design and draw the best playground ever, best splash pad ever. So that was a very, very interesting day as far as what is considered the best playground ever, or the greatest playground ever. And then again on July 8th, I met with a contractor again who I have a relationship with when building other projects, and asked them to kind of give me a ballpark, shoot out some ideas, some budget timeframes, all that good stuff. These are 4 examples of the kiddos in our KV, their design of the greatest playground ever. I have a total of 13 of these in my office, and I omitted a lot of the ones that have boys only and girls only areas. That was very important to them. You'll see that some of these are as elaborate as big playgrounds with a small splash pad. Some of them have wave pools. One of them has a roller coaster. One of them has an Ulta. So as a shopping mall would go. So it was just kind of interesting where the kids' minds went with that. But it was very interesting to me. All of them included a restroom. So I thought that was pretty good for them. What I wanted to reiterate with this, because I don't want to sound like a wet blanket on it, what we need to consider is splash pads are great. They can promote movement and play with water, great social learning environments for kids and parents alike. They can work as a complementary amenity, or they can be a standalone amenity. So meaning you can add them to or have them on their own. And then they're typically unsupervised, again, with appropriate signage. So they're much more cost effective than a traditional pool. On this slide, these were all developed by a pool contractor out of Roanoke, National Pools. We use them for all of our current pool maintenance with both McWayne and the indoor pool. And so I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what they can look like. So on the top right, what you'll see is a Twin Falls State Park that was built in 2021 and is about 1,600 square feet. Much like if you're shopping for a car, these amenities you can have Cadillac amenities, and you can have Geo Metro amenities. So I mean, if you're looking at these kind of things, you can see the best and some of the more cost efficient. Again, that one's about 1,600 square feet. It's relatively small. The bottom right is at the Bedford County YMCA. That was built in 2022, and that's about 1,800 square feet. The bottom left is Children's Nest, which is a daycare facility, I believe, in Roanoke County, and that was built in 2023, and that's approximately 2,100 square feet. And then in the top left is, it's just a fun design that myself and the owner of National Pools were able to put together, and that's a monster splash pad. It's about 5,000 square feet. That has about every amenity you could add to it, the big water bucket, all of those kind of things. So again, keeping in mind the size and shape and all of that good stuff, but kind of coming back to reality, as the 4 splash pads alone in that range anywhere between $500,000 and $2.5 million upon completion. They're just expensive. It's largely dependent on site selection, any kind of prep required with that. Amenities such as fencing, seating, shade structures, bathhouses, changing facilities, etc., that are chosen for the site. So a lot of that you can kind of pick and choose. This is also an amenity that you're putting a lot of money into that's purely seasonal. And then the anticipated annual maintenance cost of this, depending on how we set this up, again, freshwater compared to a recirculating system, would be very comparable to what it costs us during the summer to operate McWayne Pool as far as our chemicals are concerned. So you'd be looking at somewhere between $9,000 and $18,000, just depending on the size of the facility.
The lower cost would be a recirculating system. I looked at some figures, and some of the figures that I looked at for recirculating would be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. I know that it uses anywhere from 5,000 to, I guess, 26,000 gallons
Per minute. Mm-hmm.
So I'm concerned with the amenities and things that we can provide for our youth. And I know things like this, it supports youth as well as, I guess, adult recreation. If adults want to, get up, get out, bring their kids out, watch them, they're moving. I'm all about promoting healthier lifestyles and having recreation for our young people. One of the biggest complaints is there's nothing here to do.
Right.
So I know that the Huckleberry Park in Christiansburg, it is an all-inclusive park that has amenities that are pet-friendly, play areas. They have special event locations, something that we truly need, and multi-purpose playing fields.
So I would like to see something like this for our community. I know that a while back we discussed travel ball and different things, and I looked into some other things. I sat down and actually talked to people who have to travel out of this area to do travel ball. But if we could sit down and come up with a resolution to where we have something that is all inclusive, some park that includes this for everybody in the community, where a park that has amenities for everyone. As well as
I'm really
revenue.
excited. I'm really excited to hear you say that, because that was one of the, on the next slide here too, is when we determine the scope of this project, that's my question, is what do we want it to look like? And could it be a part of a larger project that would be available year round rather than just seasonal? So if it were to include
A dog
playground,
park.
you know, anything like that that you can include into a park, or outdoor fitness, things like that, those are becoming more and more requested too. So whenever we're considering something like this, would it be more appropriate to consider it as part of that package? And I personally would request that.
Mr. Sheriff, I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the splash pad itself, is there some type of sensor that, say, for instance, there's like no one there? Would it be like
You can do it with a timer. There's basically a
Okay.
button that you could
Okay.
push, and
Okay.
that would turn the system on. And most of the time they run for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and
Okay.
then they would shut off.
Great.
So they're not running all the time. Now, if you have a recirculating system, that pump will have to remain primed. So so that may be running, but it may not actually be. They're variable speeds, so it would be recirculating the water in that tank. However, it wouldn't actually be pushing it out of those features, so you wouldn't see that, because you do have to keep that water balanced, just like a pool.
And it would be filtered and everything. Okay, great.
If you were to go with that.
Okay,
Now,
thank you.
Otherwise, like at Huckleberry Park, they do fresh water. So they're fine with the water costs associated with that. And I believe Chilhowie does that as well.
So could you just really quickly, for the remainder of council, explain the
Right.
difference between a freshwater versus
So,
recycled?
like I said, fresh water, you're basically it's like you're hooking up a water line at your house, and you turn that on, and fresh water goes out, and then it wastes into the drain, or however you choose to dispose of that water. Recirculating system would require, just like at a pool, you have a pump that pushes that water through your system, and then you have some way of recapturing that water, and then it's filtered, and then it's sanitized. And when I say it's sanitized, you're using some kind of chlorine or something to disinfect that. But just like a pool, you can't just pump a bunch of chlorine into it. You have to make sure your pH is balanced, your alkalinity is balanced, so that way you don't have issues with the end user. So you're not causing skin irritation or anything like that. So it's basically you've got everything there for the pool except for the large body of water. You're just circulating that another way.
Is there any way, if the council decided to do it or whatever, and then did a fresh water, could the water not be recycled and used for like the plants on Main Street, and also for like when we have parades and events, and have like a storage container where we could put them in like the big containers they fill with? I mean, that might be something
I think that would be a really cool way, but that's going to be a lot of water. You're going to have a lot of water storage with that. I think that would be phenomenal. Some way of repurposing that water. I just don't know.
Get your water, people, for your garden.
I just don't know that. I don't know that we would physically have enough storage or a way to store
the
that.
recirculation system is the lower cost. And being
That's
that
actually higher.
that's where-
It's initial cost.
Yes, initial cost.
Initial cost,
Yeah.
it's much higher.
Yeah.
So with the recirculation system, you've got to build the reservoir, you've got to build the pumps. With the other one, you just build a drain to the sewer line.
initially you put all of that in, but in the long term,
It could be.
is lower cost. And it only requires someone to check the system. I think they should go by either once a week or every day to make sure that, once a day, to make sure that things are operating correctly and properly. And if it's something that is installed, if it's installed over at Withers Park, you already have the pool there. So it shouldn't be that much of a problem when it comes to checking on it and maintenance. because you already have staff there.
Correct. Yeah, but I mean, like Mr. Freeman was saying, it up front, that recirculating system is more expensive. Over time, it may even out, but it just depends on your water usage.
And it's really, I'd like to do that analysis. I mean, I'd like to look at it. It really depends on who's providing the water to it. I mean, some places, it really depends on the cost of making the water, honestly. And we make water and we make it very cheap. Some places may not. They may have to use a recirculating system because they don't have a dedicated water supply, or they're buying it from a PSA or whatever, versus where we make our own water. So it's going to be different for every facility, the cost analysis.
And again, a large portion of that depends on how big we do it. That's the thing. And that's what hopefully, when I get through the end of this, then maybe we can come up with a path on how to get to that. So again, the first thing, what we need to proceed is determining the scope of the project. And I'm with you, is if it's something that we can add to another project, I think that would be great. Then determining the location, what site can accommodate, what amenities may already be in place. So if you're not looking at, maybe you don't have to build a restroom facility because there's a restroom facility close by, parking, lighting, all of those good things. Then determining our budget for the project. It's largely contingent on the site selection, prep work required to support the project. Other considerations may be, again, the fresh water compared to the recirculated. But we don't want to forget about in this project, it's not just the pad and the features. You've got to look at your amenities, so your shade structure, fencing, all of those things. We can't forget about all those. And then after we've concluded all of that work, then we may be able to begin working on an initial design once we pick a site, and then approval and construction beyond that. So our next steps, this is where I'm seeking your all's input on how you would like for us to proceed with this project. Option one would be to allow myself, my staff, to work with other departments within the town, engineering, public works, planning, to gather the information and come back maybe in October at some point to discuss what we've come up with as far as plans, location, things like that. Or option two, which hopefully this would be something more that you all would be amenable to, is allowing someone from council to be a representative on this committee that maybe we establish, again, with Parks and Recreation staff, engineering staff, public works staff. I also think it would be great to have a rec commission member on that, as far as to help them and be involved in the planning, and then maybe town management representative on that council. Option three was maybe something I just didn't think of. So if you all have a better option for that, or something else you would like to look into, but ultimately, I think the establishment of a plan on how you all would like to proceed is going to be beneficial to the overall success of the project. So I guess I'm just looking for some input on how you all would like to proceed with creating those plans.
Josh, I have
Yes, ma'am.
maybe a question, but so there could be another potential site, is what I'm hearing, if we wanted to incorporate other amenities around that area. And I think the town's kind of a little low on property.
Mm-hmm.
I know one place you're probably thinking about, but
well, I think that would be the purpose of that committee, to help kind of look into those, and again, and working with Billy, maybe in engineering, to kind of determine what may be the most appropriate for some of those sites. I mean, I think there's a couple different spots. And again, this is all very early in the planning stages. I know I have epiphanies that come to me in the middle of the night. I think it would be great to go there. But maybe I'm not considering everything with that. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know what may be the best spot.
I know Ms. Johnson just brought that up a little while ago about, all those other entities. But again, I think the town has very little opportunity in areas that we could do something with that, unless we could get somebody to donate some land for us.
You never know. You never know.
That's right. So that's why, I think that would be great. What you both are saying, I think, would be great, either or. I think to investigate it would be
I think that's where we're at. Well, I think we can all agree that I think it's a wonderful opportunity, but I think it's just determining, where do we go from here? We know it's a good idea, so now where do we go? And I think having a couple of the staff members that are currently with the town go through that project and start exploring some different opportunities, I think would be phenomenal. So
I think option 2 would be great.
Mhm.
And there may be grant money. I'm not sure.
Right.
That's a part of it that I have not researched, but there's a possibility that there could be grant money. And there may be people who want to make contributions. They may want to have their name displayed for their company, and they may, be a sponsor of the project. But there are a lot of opportunities out there to get it done.
And I think it could be a lot of fun. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So.
Well, you can have one council, and then if Public Works, if Mr. Gilman, maybe from that committee, someone else join in too. So if you want to.
I'm already on the break.
Oh, well, there you go.
But if we'd like to continue the conversation afterwards, I can reach out to see who may be willing to be a participant in that. I've already spoke with Public Works and Engineering and got their buy-in for the project. So as far as the planning side of it, so we could begin looking into that process.
And when would you think it would be reasonable time frame just to come back and give us an update?
As far as I would say if we could, I would say that if we could look at possibly, I would say if we could look at, maybe mid-September as far as, hey, here's where we're at, here's the committee that we've established, and we're starting to narrow in on some of those things that may be a reality for that. I think that would be a good idea.
Is that okay with council?
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next on the agenda is citizens period, and I do not have anybody that has requested to speak during citizens period, so unless things have changed, we will just move forward. So next would be new business by Town Manager, Mr. Freeman.
There's none at this time, Mayor Taylor.
All right. Reports from Town Clerk Sherry Corbin. Upcoming meetings.
Yes, ma'am. I have just a few. The Joint Industrial Development Authority of Wythe County will meet on Thursday, July 25th at 3 p.m. here in the council chambers. The Wytheville Tree Advisory Committee will meet on Thursday, August 8th at 8:30 here in the Municipal Building in Conference Room A. The Wytheville Planning Commission will meet on Thursday, August 8th at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. And the next regular scheduled meeting of the Wytheville Town Council will be held on Monday, August 12th at 5 p.m. here in the council chambers. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. So next on the agenda is council member time, and we'll start with you, Councilwoman Johnson.
Is there a protocol for closing the recreation center pool when there is thundering and lightning? I know a lot of times they will close the pool for 30 minutes. I received a complaint from a citizen in regards to the pool being closed and not opening back up when there was no more thunder. So what is the actual protocol? Is there a policy?
If we hear thunder or see lightning.
Josh, will you come to the podium, please?
If we hear thunder or see lightning, then we will close the pool for 30 minutes, and that would be both the indoor or the outdoor pool.
Okay.
And then each time you hear or see that, then we would just restart that clock.
Okay.
And so sometimes with some of the thunderstorms we do have, they roll through. And if the facility hours, if the pool closes at 7 and it's 6:45 and we hear thunder, then we may go ahead and close the facility at that point.
What about people that have paid for that time and then you don't open it back up and then they're no longer able to, or do they get their money back? How does that?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. They do not.
Okay.
So we do have that posted that, we are, that no refunds are given for day of. We advise folks as they come in that, hey, we're currently on thunder watch, or we advise people of the current forecast for that day. Hey, there is a chance for thunder or lightning. Unfortunately on weeks like this, we try and give every warning that we can, but it's really up to the consumer if they would like to proceed with coming on in and purchasing that pass.
All right. Well, How much do they pay to come in is it, I don't know, I'm a pass play member, so I don't pay a daily rate. Is it $5 or $6 for you?
For an adult at the indoor facility, for an adult, it's $8.
Okay.
For youth or teen, it's $4.50.
$4.50. Okay.
And then at the McWayne pool, it's $4 for anyone over the age of 12, I believe. I'm sorry, I can't remember that right, but it's $4 is the general admission fee there.
So if someone came in, say at 2, and it was thundering, close the pool, and you didn't open it back up, they would just be out of $8 if they were an adult.
Correct. Yes.
I think council needs to take a look at that, because if they're only there for 10 or 15 minutes and they've paid $8, you just take their $8 and they're out of $8. So maybe we need to take a look at, I would hate for somebody to pay money. They hear thunder. They have to get out after being in for 10 minutes and they lose $8. Maybe like a rain check card or something? Yeah, rain check or a refund. That's a
rain check would be a much easier thing to do rather than actually
to refund their money. So that's something I think that council needs to take a look at. If they're not there, I could see if they were there for an hour or two, but if they are just getting there and they're only there for 10 or 15 minutes, they hear thunder and they decide to close the pool, then we need to come up with another measure so that those individuals are not out of their money.
We wouldn't just immediately say the pool's closed for the remainder of the day. I mean, if it got to that point where that 30-minute time frame was beyond what the operating hours, then that would be the only time we would do that. So if it were to thunder at 2 o'clock, we would do everything we could to remain open and allow them the opportunity to swim again, hopefully once the storm passes. But if it's rolling thunder, it would just depend on that.
Okay.
Josh, you've been around some of the other municipalities that have that. Do they have different?
Typically, what you'll see at you'll see a variety of things. I mean, if there's when they post the weather or whenever they say, hey, there are no refunds for and it's kind of a warning. Hey, it looks like it's getting ready to break open. So do you want to go ahead and spend that money to come in? But it's a variety. I mean, it could be a day pass. You don't typically see a refund because of the cost of reissuing a refund, especially if they paid with a card or something like that. But you're more likely to see a day pass or a rain check of some sort given. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do you have anything else, Ms. Johnson?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Let's jump up to Mr. Gilman.
I have nothing at this time.
All right.
I do have one more thing. Sorry. Question. I didn't get to email you, but are we working on we're near the end of July, and I believe we voted to honor the retirees, and I think we still have some that we're backlogged on. So when are we going to start honoring those the retirees that we're backlogged on?
Yeah, so we absolutely are. So I will meet again with HR on Wednesday. I know we have one that's happened that gets a rocking chair. I think we're already scheduling him, setting up a schedule with him to bring him in.
August 12th.
Yeah, so it's already on there. We've got one. We're doing one on August 12th. Yeah, so we're already implementing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just checking.
Yeah, thank you, Sherry. I wasn't sure if it had already been kind of stuck on there. I knew that I had talked to them. We've got a rocking chair for that individual, and I knew they were working on working with his schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's it. Not coming back.
Ms. Atkins?
I do. I think reached out to Mr. Freeman about a citizen was inquiring about some bike racks on Main Street.
Do we need additional bike racks, Ms. Atkins?
I'm sorry, do what now?
Do we need additional racks?
Well, she just asked if there could be some placed on there. And also, I just didn't know if we had an update on the informational TVs that I have mentioned in different departments.
I do not.
Okay. Okay, also some updates on the trees out in Country Club.
AEP will be cutting down most of those trees. The contractor was supposed to, last Wednesday, we got a report that the contractor would be working at the end of the week on the town's portion of the trees.
Okay.
And then AEP will be cutting down several of them that are under their wires. They've got them marked, but we don't know when they'll.
Okay, but it's still in the works. Sort
Absolutely,
of. Okay,
yeah.
great. Thank you. Also, delineators on the vehicles.
Billy, I might ask you to help me out here. I do know that the garage supervisor, Mr. Prim, worked on getting most of those should be done, if not all of those. I know all the engineering, public utilities vehicles should have had that done. Would you mind helping me out here? I know you were working on that with them.
Andrew Alston found a place. We were digging online that basically provides this. You get variable size, the striping to put on the back of the vehicles, depending on what kind of vehicle you have. They're not custom because to get a custom one to fit each vehicle, they're like about $1,000. They're pretty expensive if you have one that is form fit to each individual like model, year, vehicle. We have a place that we've been sourcing them. All the engineering department, including public utilities, wastewater treatment plant, water treatment plant, all the vehicles have received striping and have placed all that on there.
Striping on them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with same thing, we basically sourced out to Mr. Prim. Here's where we get this from for him to basically get a vehicle count and start getting all their equipment because the public utilities did the backhoes, we did the back of the flusher truck, the Vector truck. So not only the commuter vehicles, if you want to call them, or the service trucks, but also the equipment has some manner of striping delineator on them.
Sweet.
So
Okay. Well, thank you.
hopefully, like I said, that Mr. Prim will be able to get the rest of them done. Like I said,
And we can check with him on during our Wednesday meeting and see if they've got any of those outstanding.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Ms. Atkins, can I ask a question about one of your questions?
Yes, ma'am.
So the bike racks, I think we had one when we had everything was renovated. I don't know if it's still on there, but there was also something we probably need to look into in that bike riding on the sidewalks in Main Street was not permitted. And I know a lot of people will walk their bikes in and park and go do whatever, but I think before we put out more bike racks, and again, that other one might have been moved somewhere else, then we might need to look at that verbiage and just see. We don't want to encourage people and then tell them they can't do it.
I mean,
Or we change it.
Can't they ride bicycles on the road?
Yeah, certainly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there you see that.
But I mean, like if someone actually wanted to park and go into a store, not like laying the bicycle down to, maybe there can be signs or whatever to put up. But I mean,
yeah, we can look at some more. I mean, I do know, and John can help me out here because I know that he worked very closely on the downtown project. I know we had one at one time outside in the vicinity of the Millwall and the GameStop area because I knew a lot of kids use the video game store. Of course, he's not there anymore. Do you know if the rack is still there?
Before the construction project, there were a couple of racks out, and they were pretty ratty condition. There were some bike racks included in the streetscape plan. However, those racks were lost during the construction project. And
eliminated.
And so the contractor refunded that portion of the project cost rather than order new ones.
So why don't we get some pricing and some design ideas for you all and bring them back to a subsequent meeting? And
okay, maybe like one. I think she mentioned one on each end and possibly one in the middle. But
why don't we get you some ideas? Okay.
Great. Let's see that. Okay. I know that I also wanted to just make a note of this. I think it is on the next agenda about animal welfare to be put on the next agenda. Also, I think I had sort of asked about there's apparently 2 officers that has stepped up to take on another little bit of responsibility on extra coverage. And I think that amount was like $1,500, the stipend. I think I've asked a couple times if it could go up to $2,500, just because $1,500, I mean, that's just, that would almost be eaten up in taxes. So I didn't know if we could look at, $2,500 for those officers who stepped up and those who might be committed later on.
Right. I mean, yeah, we'll do whatever you all want to do.
Well, no, I'm asking. That's
Sure,
what, yeah.
sure.
I just wanted to.
So, my hope with starting that program was, frankly, I hope we've got 28 uniformed officers. I hope 28 uniformed officers would get that certification. Do I expect that to happen? No. But 28 officers at $1,500 is $42,000. We could literally have the entire department certified for less than the cost of hiring one full-time ACO.
Well, we've talked about it.
Right.
I think about 3 years when I reached out to someone who was offered it, and it's not into effect yet, to the best of my knowledge. It's close. It's this close. But I think we need to.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, I think there are 2 officers. I mean, I think it's almost like close.
Two more that are about to happen?
No, sir. No, sir. The ones that were mentioned in the email.
They're done.
Okay, but what I'm okay. So, but it's been like a 3-year. Can we look at upping that though? I'm asking because originally we've talked about, or I've mentioned upping that because $1,500 is just, because they're going to be taking on a different responsibility. So just wonder council's thoughts.
So did we not, we approved, was it not a person on
Yes.
each shift? Not the entire department, but a person on each shift?
Well, we kind of put it out there a couple of years ago prior to you coming on council that I'll share with you the ideas that were out there. At one time, we talked about making it mandatory for a frontline supervisor to have that training. Ms. Atkins will recall, we talked about
3 years
Joe
ago.
and Chief Ashkin, right. We talked about saying, if you want to be a corporal, this will be one of the minimum things you'll have to do, because we were trying to get one per shift that had the knowledge, the understanding, the training on what to look for in an animal welfare situation, especially welfare checks on dogs was a big one. Not so much dog catching per se, but going out and checking on the welfare of an animal because we've received a complaint or observed something. That idea was not well received. People didn't want it to be a mandate. So we said, okay, anyone who would be willing to receive the training or take the training, we would give you the additional stipend for every year that you maintain it. And then.
And do the job.
Yes, of course. They would respond to any call that came in during their shift in which we didn't have an ACO, right? So the ACO would typically work your normal daytime hours, and then we would have additional people on any shift over a welfare check. They would always respond to those calls. But, I mean, I think we should encourage as many of them to do it because, the goal is better animal welfare outcomes. And so it takes a lot of, that won't be, there's not a, simply putting more people out there with this specific task is a lot more expensive and may not result in better outcomes. What we need is more knowledge and understanding in all the people that are responding to these calls all the time so that they can identify what is an animal welfare concern, what is the law relative to animal welfare, and these people will have that knowledge base.
And upholding the law.
Certainly, and I agree with that. And so I commend the 2 officers that have stepped up and done it. I commend Lieutenant Akers for stepping up and doing it. And I understand we have 2 more currently in training, and then we're hiring a full-time civilian. So we will have, in just before you know it, we will have 6 fully certified ACOs.
Right. And my question is I would like to be over, I'd like to up it to 25. Maybe we might get some more, officers enticed to do it. But it also is just a stipend. So if it's not being done, supposedly, right? Isn't that right? It's a stipend.
Sure. Certainly, the Chief Ash and I have talked about this. If an animal control call comes in tonight at 8:00 and you are one of these people that has this credential, we want you to respond to that call. You might not be the first to that scene, but we would like that ACO to always be listening, monitoring that radio, that channel, whatever, and responding to that call because they're the one with the additional training on that. So absolutely. Now, And that's why I draw the distinction between that versus, say, dog catching. It's not necessarily that we're going to require every one of these officers to go get the truck and the box and the snare and catch a dog running at large. They can, but our officers do that anyway. I mean, they try to do that anyway. But primarily, I think the focus would be on general animal welfare concerns.
Can this go to the Budget and Finance Committee?
The recommendation, we up the stipend.
Yeah.
If you all want to refer it to committee, I think that's perfectly reasonable.
What did you just say? I didn't hear you.
She asked if it could be referred to committee, to the budget.
To the Budget and Finance Committee. We already approved $1,500. So if you do $2,500, that's $208 more a month on someone's paycheck before taxes. So I don't know, I guess it needs to be worth their while.
And I have asked for it. I'm sorry. I didn't interrupt.
You have, but
Right.
yeah, you have.
But I know I'm just one. And I didn't mean to interrupt. I
Can I
apologize.
finish, please?
I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So if you're asking someone else to add to their duties, I think that it should be worth their while. It's not going to be, you don't want it to be eaten up by taxes. So like 2,500 divided by 12, that's $208 and some change, $208.33 before taxes. So I don't see the harm in giving, how many people you have? 6?
Well, so
We discussed in budget finance to designate a person on each shift in the event that animal control was not available.
that was the goal, was to try to get one per shift, and we had 4 volunteers, and they happened to be one from each shift. I personally, you all may disagree. I would, again, I wouldn't care if we certified them all, because you're going to have, again, just going back to the 1,500 number times 28 officers, that's $42,000. You can't hire one ACO for that. Even if you went to 2,500, I can't do that math that quickly, but
Just stick with we originally said we would have an extra person on each shift, and whoever the extra person is on each shift that volunteers to do it, then that's what they will be paid extra to do it. So we had agreed on 4 people, a person got 4 shifts, am I correct?
correct.
So, and if the animal control individual is not available, that whoever is working would take the call. That is what we agreed upon with 4 people, not an entire department.
Well, I understand.
person on each
I'm just
shift.
trying to help Ms. Atkins
Right.
with the goals that she
So
has challenged me with. So.
We want to make it their while, it would only, for $2,500 would only be $208 more and 33 cents before taxes. And that's not a lot. It's not a lot.
No, I wasn't disagreeing. I was just thinking that
Nor am I. I mean,
We can afford it.
I'm suggesting that it could be $2,500. And from where I sit, if 10 people want to do it, the department will be better for it, and the outcomes we're trying to achieve will be better for it.
But I also want to make sure they're doing it too.
Correct. I agree.
We have failed in
100%.
that department.
100% agree.
Or you can do it at the $1,500, and if they are in compliance, then they can receive the other amount.
I'll be honest with you. I've asked for
Well,
3 years.
we have to go either one way or the other.
I would like it to be considered for 2,500.
Okay.
I mean, not everybody's going to step up. There's was an officer that refused and said, "You can't make me do it." So, I'd like to see that happen. That's not a lot considering, raises that's been given over time. So that's
No one's arguing with you.
okay. So I would like council to consider that. I'd like to make a motion for the officers that step up and want to take the extra training and actually do it, to do a stipend for 2,500 versus 1,500, because this has been a couple years in the works, 3 years in the works.
Mayor Taylor, I think the suggestion for it to go to Budget and Finance might be appropriate, just because we might have to do an appropriation for a line item. Again, I'm not trying to stifle your desire, but, monies were appropriated.
Appropriation for line item.
Potentially. I think the idea of it going to Budget and Finance Committee, we do have a meeting already scheduled on the 30th, and we can figure out the actual dollar values. That would be a change from the approved budget to what could be proposed, and then we could bring it back at the next meeting in August, if you're okay with that, Councilwoman Atkins.
Not really. No, ma'am.
All right.
Just being honest, because it is something I've tried to work on faithfully and diligently for 3 years. So let's just put it off another month.
Yep.
I mean, that's just my opinion. Just my opinion.
And just quickly, you have worked on it, but this was my idea.
Right.
So trust me, I have championed this idea on your behalf. So I want to be clear about that.
It is your idea, but it's been 3 years in the making, is what I'm trying to say. It's been 3 years in the making. So it's not like I just popped up and, brought it up this evening.
You have a motion pending, Ms. Mayor.
And so we have a motion pending.
Ms. Atkins made a motion.
Yes.
So would you repeat that motion for me, please?
I would like to, I've got my glasses. I would like for the officers that have taken on the responsibility and for the new training, animal control, welfare, to not just be $1,500, that we move it to $2,500, accepting the responsibility of the stipend. It's a stipend, correct, Mr. Freeman?
Yes, ma'am.
Not a
It would be
raise.
paid
I just want to
annually.
make sure. A stipend for doing the job.
For clarification for staff, how many officers? Because from one council member, we heard 4. Is that what you're saying, for up to 4?
That's what was on Budget and Finance,
Okay.
not from a council member. That's
Okay.
from the Budget and Finance. It was
So-
4 people.
So 4 people, is that included in the motion?
That's not an action.
Ms. Atkins? Up to 4 people that would receive $2,500?
Up to 4. If that was considered in the Budget and Finance, I wasn't on the meeting. No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Staff just needed clarification so we could fulfill your desires.
We have a motion, and that motion is only for 4 officers.
That's what but we agreed.
We have others that are going to do their.
one off of each shift is what was discussed in Budget and Finance.
So we have a motion and a second.
I don't have a second yet.
That's what I'm asking them.
I'll second.
A motion and a second.
On that, Mayor.
Is there any further discussion? I still think that it needs to go back to Budget and Finance, because we've already heard that we're going to have more than 4 offices. So instead of doing this again, I think, and again, we're in a new year and a new budget, and so it would just keep things right.
Just for clarity, Mayor Taylor, we have 1 lieutenant who already had the certification. There were going to be 4 to represent 1 per each shift. That was the goal,
Okay.
right? Then we will have a full-time dedicated civilian ACO. That process is underway. So just to be clear, we're not saying that there will be more than 4 under this program. I'm just saying I would ask the council to just marinate on it a little bit. Maybe you can do what you want to do tonight, but think about allowing others to participate in that just to improve our coverage in this arena.
All right. Any other further discussion?
I don't have an issue with going along with what we originally discussed. If it works out well and people do what they're supposed to do, then maybe we can open it up to other individuals as an incentive later on. But we have to see how it's going to work out to begin with. I have no issue as far as the increase for the 4 that we originally discussed. And then if you want to look at the progress, get a progress report from the chief on how things are going, and then we can later on look at it as maybe a possible incentive for
the next budget year.
All right, any other discussion? Thank you for that. All right, roll call vote. Councilman Gilman?
I'd like to abstain because I'd like for it to go before budget and finance first, so it can be put on as a line item.
I'd say yes.
Yes.
All right. So again, roll call vote. Taylor, aye.
Johnson, aye.
Atkins, aye.
All right, so that motion is passed. All right.
I have a few more things, sorry. Mr. Freeman and I, we've talked about this before in the past, looking at better benefits for people that may be getting ready to retire or maybe a couple years down the road ready to retire and maybe want to try to maybe keep them a little longer. Would like council or budget and finance to look at this, even though we've mentioned it before. Mr. Freeman and I've had some good conversation about it. Didn't know about looking at a free lifetime membership for the employee that's retiring, looking at doing a past plan for them at the rec center, to pay a little bit towards the VRF life insurance after they retire. That might be a planned perk, a high reward to maybe try to keep good employees a little bit longer. I'd also like to consider doing an ordinance change to pay out retirees better that stayed with us. I know we might give a little bit of an incentive on employees coming in and maybe a little bit of extra, vacation, sick pay. But I'd like budget and finance to look at this. I know we do a 25% payout plan. Is that correct?
Yes, that is the max.
Max,
Yes.
okay. I would like budget and finance to consider doing 25-25, 30 years service, 30%, 35 years, 35%, 40 years, 40%, and 45 if someone were blessed to keep somebody that long. Maybe consider doing like a high reward after the 25%, maybe over the 25% the town is going to pay anyway. Do that in like a tax sheltered annuity for the people to have a little bit of a better benefit for serving the town as they have for the employees. I'm sure they've come in and worked sick and things like that. They're not abusing their sick time. Just maybe give something to budget and finance to work towards.
Thank you.
Some type of consideration. So thank you. And I think that is my checkoff list. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else before we go into closed session? All right. So council now feels need to go into closed session. Firstly, to close meeting pursuant to 2.2-3711A1, discussion regarding performance appraisals and salaries for appointed employees. And also pursuant 2.2-3711A7, consultation with legal counsel pertaining to litigation, College Park bond discussion. I need a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye as well. Unanimous. We now, do you all need a 5-minute break? 5-minute break?
Sure.
Yeah.
We need a 5-minute break, and
Do you all mind if we do the litigation one first and then
that's correct.
whatever we can?
All right, so council now feels a necessity to reconvene into open session by stating that the town council is now in open session. A motion is necessary to certify that only matters lawfully convening the open session were discussed. I need a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote, please. Johnson?
Johnson, aye.
Atkins, aye.
Taylor, aye.
Gilman, aye.
Aye. Having no further business, we will adjourn.